I am PJ Tracy. I am the Tracy part of PJ Tracy. PJ was my beloved mother and partner for many, many years before she passed on. But I will tell you more about my life story later. First of all, I want to say how incredibly excited I am to be in Northfield because I'm a St. Olaf alum. And three of my dearest friends from St. Olaf are here with me. And it's been, I was here like in the dark ages. So things have really changed, including this library. But I had lunch at the Oli store. I haven't been there since college. And it was awesome. And I had the big fat Oli roll. It was so good. Oh, but it's really neat to be back because things have changed so much in Northfield. But the feeling is still that just warm, wonderful hug in the butt of me, and it's just a really great town, and it gets better and better. So thanks for hosting me in my stomping grounds. Somebody asked me if I just stayed on campus or if I came downtown, and I was like, came downtown a lot to drink. Because that's what you should, right. Oh, no coffee, just booze. So anyhow, it's really cool to be back. So thanks again. So PJ Tracy, my mother and I were writing partners forever. And the origin story is that we really began writing together when I was about 3 years old because our favorite time was story hour. Both sides of my family were voracious readers, and that was instilled in me from a very early age. But this was in the 70s, and you've got one tiny library, you have nothing, there's no, Kindle and everything else is miles away, and even bookstores, and so we were always running out of books. And finally, PJ said, you know what, let's write our own story. And I was like, okay. So she would write one line, and I would write another, probably gibberish in the early days because I was not in kindergarten yet. And we would do that back and forth, maybe 4 lines. And then at the end, we would act them out with my stuffed animals, Lammy and Teddy. And I still have Lammy and Teddy on my desk. And Lammy was big, fluffy white with a pink bow and blue eyes, and Teddy was a cute, classic teddy bear. And now they're gray, threadbare, and eyeless. And they have stuffing coming out of them, and they're the ugliest, most pathetic things you would ever see. But I still adore them. And so that was kind of the beginning and the inspiration. PJ, from the time she was young, as with me, always wanted to be a writer. And always, the passion was a written word. And obviously, I absorbed that through osmosis and mentorship, of course. She published her first short story in the Saturday Evening Post in 1974. And that was a really big deal. That was a big, prestigious literary magazine. But I will tell you the how that happened, actually. She oddly, for some reason, I believe she was probably 24 at that time, and she wrote a story from the POV of a 40-year-old husband and father going through a midlife crisis. Why? We don't know. Anyhow, it was a great story. And so she sent it in, and 2 months later, she got the rejection letter. Sorry, Ms. Lambrecht, it's a nice story, but it's not for us, blah, blah, blah. So PJ, being always prescient, very savvy, and aware of sexism in the industry, waited 6 months, resubmitted the exact same story under Mr. PJ Lambrecht. So, a month later, congratulations, Mr. Lambrecht. We love your story. It'll be published in the December issue. So, and as far as we know, back then there was no social media, right? So they probably never really knew that PJ was a woman. So that was kind of sort of the start of publishing for us. And as for my, nascent, writing career, from the time I could spell, From the time I could even put together a 5-sentence plot, I was outside telling myself stories. And they probably thought I was crazy. It's like, who's a weird only child walking around the yard talking to herself, which I did. And I was writing stories. And as I am now, back then, I was even then a perfectionist. And the first sentence had to be perfect before I could move on and write the second sentence. So I'd be out there for hours and come into the den where we had this 75-pound Olivetti iron manual. And I would sit there and hunt and pack with my little fingers and put down my story about a mouse and a farmer or whatever, and it never made sense. But it was just something that was always in my heart and soul and spirits. And in high school, I really started writing a lot of short stories, poetry, and that was when it was like, I want to do this for a living because this is my passion. I want this to be my life. And then I went to St. Olaf, and guess what? You'll never guess what my major was, because I had no idea. Okay, Russian. I was a Russian major, not literature, right? Russian, bad. I think that was so hard. But I did graduate in 4 years, so, and I studied voice with Louise's very well-known operatic singing mother, Janice Hardy, who was a professor for many, many years before retirement. And then when I got out, I did still want to be a writer, obviously, but I wanted to travel to Europe a lot, and I wanted to sing in a rock band. So I went to Europe a lot, and I sang in a rock band for almost all the 1990s. The band was called Poke, P-O-K-E. And we played around quite a lot. Yeah, right. Oh my God, I hope not. That would be tragic. That costs money. You want a new guitar, you want an amp, right? You want a Europass? You have to make money. And PJ was just absolutely overwhelmed with work by that time. And she's like, you know what? We've written together our whole lives. Why don't you step in? We'll split the money. So we started writing. She wrote hundreds of romantic short stories for magazines back when women's magazines were actually, any magazine was still publishing short stories. It's so rare now. And then she also forayed into Harlequin romances. And let me tell you, writing is a craft, and you have to do everything you possibly can to improve your craft. And writing romance novels is a wonderful way to do it. You have to read, and you have to keep writing to improve. And so she did that, and I said, yeah, the money is great, awesome. So we wrote many short stories together, romance and mystery short stories. And then she wrote me into writing Harlequins with her. Because it was even bigger money, right? And it was just, PJ was just a marvelous, hilarious soul. And we always laughed, always, no matter what. We were always laughing together. She was truly a soulmate and my best friend. And so you could imagine, I would go to her house to work, and we had 2 desks, 2 computers facing each other. And imagine the laughter when mother and daughter were trying to do a love scene. I mean, God. It was like awkward, embarrassing, and hilarious. Because what can you do? I mean, So I did 4 with her. And I tell a great story about how she started out on Harlequins. It was in the 80s, early 80s, mid-80s, I guess. And there was that big articles out everywhere about how rich you could get writing Harlequins. I mean, these people are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And Peter's like, well, come on. I'm going to investigate this. I could do this. So, part of writing is always writing what you know. And it's always about doing research and reading what you want to write. So she got tons of Harlequin romance novels and, was researching. And then we had my father. And PJ and my father and family friends came over for a meal. And she, dealt out all these Harlequin romances. So now everyone just open a page and read a phrase or paragraph. And so the first one was our good friend, and she randomly opened up the book, and her eyes kind of went wide. And then she read the quote, "She bucked in the heat." So that's how bad they were back then. I mean, I love romances and everything, but there were some really poorly written ones. Like, I've heard 50 Shades of Grey is really poorly written, so it's kind of was like that. But we were laughing. I mean, I still laugh about that. Because we're like, are you kidding me? It does not. We thought she was making it up, for real. It's like, no way. But yeah, it was there. He was a British author. So, anyhow, she did that. We did 4 Harlequins together. And it was a trip, and it was great, and it was good money. But especially at the time, the guidelines were very restrictive. You had to have the girl. You had to have the guy. You had to have the conflict, makeup, happy ending. Happily ever after. And that was it. And they did not want secondary characters or tertiary. I mean, it was just, that's it. And we were getting suffocated, and if you love the written word, as we did, it was just stifling, and we were burned out beyond belief. And so we knew that we had to do something. And so we decided to take a big risk and take a year off with no income. And we said, we're going to write the book that we would love to read, and we loved a mystery and thriller genre. And we are going to write characters that we love and want to meet at a dinner party. And that became Monkeewrench. Monkeewrench, for those who are not familiar, takes place, it's a 10-book series, and it takes place in Minneapolis with homicide detectives working with a group of very eccentric, genius computer geeks who always help the cops. And it was just, they were so much fun. And to go back to Harlequins, when I was saying that you can only have like 2 characters and maybe somebody in the background. So in Monkeewrench, it's like we went absolutely crazy, and had like a million characters. Like Monkeewrench was comprised of, 4 primaries. We've got the 2 cops, we've got other cops, and it was just so much fun because finally we were able to do an ensemble piece. And I think when you have 2 very creative minds, you've got things clamoring in your head all the time, all the characters. And so we were finally able to get that in the written page. And every book adds a new character or revisits an old one, so it was fun. And we had a blast. So let me tell you that Monkeewrench, the first of the series, is 20 years old this year, published in 2003, and it's been an amazing ride. And I will tell you the what happened throughout the publication of Monkeewrench. It's in 2000, it was 2001, I believe, and suddenly it's like everybody, we had an agent and everybody wanted it. And so there was going to be an auction with the New York publishing houses where they all bid against each other to get this debut novel. And we're like over the moon, we couldn't even believe it. And I was living in LA then. I lived there for 10 years. And so I thought, oh my God, I flew back all the time to write with PJ, but I had to come back for the auction. So I booked my flight to fly in the day of the auction. And then I'm like, well, that's stupid. Fly in the day before. PJ can hang out and get drunk and anticipate what's going to happen, drink wine, and have fun. So at the last minute, I changed my flight. And, it was fun, and we got together, and we didn't get drunk, but we drank wine. Quite a bit, probably. And so we slept in, and my dad was at work, so we were there alone. We slept in. The phone kept ringing. It was kind of bugging us, that misty netherworld as you're merging into consciousness. But we're like, whatever, ignored it. So we went down, made coffee, and I'm thinking, well, I should probably, maybe I'll go listen to the answer machine. And just then, PJ turned on the television, and the second tower fell as we watched. And so it was one of those just heart-wrenching, bittersweet things, the most exciting day of our lives, and then the most tragic day of the whole world's lives. And, obviously, I will always think of 9/11, with Monkeewrench, and it was just, stunning. And it was weird. It kind of felt like it happened for some reason. I know it didn't, but it was just very impactful. I mean, it's still even difficult now to talk about, because I remember, the emotion. Publishing is in New York, and friends, colleagues, I mean, everyone knows somebody or either lost someone or knew somebody. So anyhow, never forget. But obviously, resilient as we all are, New York came back. And it's probably, then it was purchased outright by Putnam, big publishing house. And so it was obviously behind a year because of 9/11, but it was published in 2003 in April. And it became a New York Times bestseller right out of the gates. And many, many more Monkeewrench novels after that were also New York Times bestsellers. So it was amazing. We did, national tours, 23 cities in 27 days. Nightmare, by the way. And we did international tours, the Netherlands and England and Germany, and it was just such a beautiful thing. It was so much fun because PJ and I were like buds. I mean, we just had fun. But also, I lost her very young to heart failure. She was only 70, and so it was such a blessing to have this beautiful, vibrant, woman, this supernova. And we shared all of that together, in our writing. So, it's very, it was really wonderful and special. And as I mentioned, she lost her in 2016. And then here I'm at this big crossroads. My whole world just fell apart, right? And I had no idea if I would be able to continue Monkeewrench. It was our voice and our world and our creation together. And I really had no idea, how I was going to adapt, if I was going to adapt, if I would be able to, even do it without her. And so what I did every night when I got home, and it was January then, awful cold January, and I would sit in front of my computer and just stare at the screen. And knowing that, I have a Word document open, knowing something may happen or may not. It was almost like I was sort of looking for some divine spiritual inspiration, or at least some guidance for my own, subconscious. And then probably 2 weeks after her passing, I sat down and I started writing, and I couldn't stop. And I couldn't stop. And that was the ninth book in Monkeewrench, The Guilty Dead. And I wrote the first draft in 5 months, and let me tell you, that does not happen. That's impossible. I mean, I have to write a book a year, and it's hell. It's really hard. 5 months is unreal. And it was writing is my enduring tether to PJ. And, she's with me, the most when I'm writing. And so it was cathartic. It was purifying. It was a way to rebond with her in her new place and my new place. So that was amazing. And then it's these are buddies. Monkeewrench and the cops. I always expect Christmas cards from them. Seriously, it's why does Grace and Magosi send me a Christmas card? You're that close to them. And so it was cool. And then Ice Cold Heart was the 10th in the series. And then I stopped to start a new series. But for anyone, the diehard Monkeewrench fans, or people who maybe haven't started but will become Monkeewrench fans, and I get this question all the time: when's a new Monkeewrench coming out? Well, it's I'm in the process of in talks about writing 1 or 2 more Monkeewrench. So I am under contract right now to write a 4th in this LA Noir series, the Detective Margaret Nolan series, and then after that I will be doing Monkeewrench again. And actually I'm really excited about getting back to the gang, because, oh good. Well, no, they're so beloved. I mean, they really are, and it's a great ensemble group, great cast, fun to write about. There's a lot of humor. Obviously, they're thrillers and they're scary, and there's darkness, but there's also a lot of light to them. I think you would agree. And on to, this is my most current iteration, my most current phase of my life as a writer, and it is the new series starting with Deep into the Dark, Desolation Canyon, Devil You Know, and the 4th one I'm working on has no title. And this came about, as you know, as I told you, I lived in LA for 10 years. And, I really believe in order to write authentically and realistically about any place, you have to be fully immersed in the culture, everything. There's so many nuances. You can't not be and write about it with, And so after 10 Monkeewrench books, my brain is clamoring with all of these experiences and, all these recollections and these observations of the crazy diverse world of Los Angeles. And they had to come out. And so I was really excited to just totally, something different and establish my own voice. The voice of Monkeewrench was PJ's and mine, both of ours, blended together. But of course, we each also had our own writing voices. So that's where Deep into the Dark came out, and they're all extremely critically acclaimed. I mean, the New York Times actually gave the good reviews, which is crazy because they're so mean. But yes, they gave a great review. And it was just fun. It's Margaret Nolan is the female. She's a strong female lead detective of the LAPD's very elite homicide special section. It's the top of the top. And she's navigating the old boys network. She is dealing with some family issues. Her brother was recently killed in Afghanistan. Comes from a military family. So she's a very complex character. And sort of her counterpoint in this one, and he also becomes a recurring character, Sam Easton, who happens to be Afghan war vet who was almost killed in an IED explosion. And he returns home severely disfigured in his face and with severe PTSD. And so there's a lot of struggles. There's a lot about, struggles, Sam's struggles, Margaret's, and how they come together because he actually becomes a murder suspect. So it's fun, and there's all kind. It's very different. It's quite divergent from Monkeewrench, but at its core, they're still super thrillers. They're thrillers, and they're also mysteries. And in the same way that Monkeewrench was populated by very intricate, complex people. I think the worst mistake writers make is that every character, every human being has lots of stuff, lots of layers. Even if they're just, a street sweeper or whatever, they have so much. And it makes me sad, a squandered opportunity to read books when not every single character is developed. And so that's kind of one of my favorite things. I had written an essay once that I was asked the question, how many, what's most important, character, plot, or setting? And I sat there and I thought about it because it's all really important. But I realized that every single aspect of it is crucial. You need to have characters that the reader likes or relates to or empathizes with. Absolutely, the environment needs to be a main character, and I always make my environment a main character as well. It has to jump in. That's why you need to be immersed in a place you write about. And the plot is crucial. The plot is the engine that drives the character, and vice versa. So, you absolutely must have those three things. And, that's what I always endeavor to do and I always strive for.